Moving to a documentary, The Showerhead, showcasing the work of renowned cartoonist Jonathan Shapiro, known by his pen name Zapiro, has received a rating of 16LNPSV for its cinema release. It was shown at the Durban Film Festival over the weekend, and as part of that screening, ahead of a four-wall cinema release, it got the 16LNPSV, which is language, nudity, P is politics, I suppose, sex and violence. Jonathan, who knew that your cartoons contained all of those things?
I know. It feels like a throwback to the 70s or something. I mean, you remember what it was like trying to do plays or cartoons or whatever, with the old censorship board, and the language that they use there's a sort of censorious kind of language about all the stuff that could be morally harmful to children, and also it really is amazing.
This is not you cartooning in the nude as a little gimmick for the documentary. You're fully clothed, as are everybody you interact with during the documentary. So I mean, I'm really look. I mean, I know that you. This is what political cartoonists do. It's what they are required to do, is to deal with contentious matters. But I cannot imagine what would be in a documentary featuring you and your cartoons that would require this age rating.
Okay, so I mean, I'm as nonplussed as you are, but let's say, for example, that somebody's making a song and dance to, let's say, high school kids. Look, if it gets a 13, if our appeal succeeds, and we think it will, we're pretty sure it will, and they get a sort of 13 PG, could live with that. I think all of us involved in the movie could live with that. But for high school students, can you imagine thinking that high school students would be somehow impaired seeing a drawing, a cartoon, sort of penis on top of the Union buildings or something like that? I mean, as if they don't know what that means. They don't understand anything about sort of some kind of sexual or graphic references in high school in this day and age. That's number one. But the other thing is that one of the things that I found utterly amazing was that I'll just quote you a line here. Themes are suitable to older children. Younger children may be morally harmed based on the presentation of the antagonist, Jacob Zuma, and how he's depicted as corrupt and a degenerate. This may impact negatively to younger, sensitive viewers who still rely heavily on social norms and have yet developed, meant to say not yet developed, their moral cognitive functionality that is independent. Now, can you imagine that the idea that not a news piece, but a documentary which is meant to be about people expressing opinion. So if we say that Jacob Zuma is corrupt and a degenerate, I'm not arguing with that. I'm perfectly happy with their interpretation of what I've said about Jacob Zuma. But what is more harmful to young children? To have a piece of satire saying this, or to see actual people, actual politicians running around being corrupt and degenerate? That, to me, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what a documentary is and what young people are capable of discussing.
Yeah, I've been told P stands for prejudice, and I suppose the example that you've just used would be part of their prejudicial argument. But again, yeah, I mean, what children between 13 and 16 are exposed to daily, the language they hear, the realities that they observe, the violence amongst which they live, and then to get all 19th century Mother Grundy about this, it's just we must try and get them on the radio. It beggars belief, Jonathan.
It does. And now that you've of course correctly identified what that P is, the prejudice thing, there are places where they talk about bias. What that has to do is with young people. I suppose in that previous statement that I read out, I suppose that's their linking of supposed bias that young people aren't able to sort of to figure out themselves. But the idea of a documentary somehow having to do what, say, a news story has to do, a news story where you may have to get sort of right of reply or whatever it is. There's no such constraint on a documentary, and there's no and certainly young people, high school students would have no. I mean, they have no problem understanding that this is something, putting a point of view, and a point of view where, I mean, Jacob Zuma has not been able to sue me again based on many of the things I've said. He sued twice, and in fact, the whole reason that the movie got made is that he sued me twice. I didn't back down, and they had to drop the charges in both the cases because they could not say that I had defamed him. And everything was seen to be, by anyone who looked at it, and eventually even his own lawyers, seen to be based on things that we could defend. And so, in fact, what we're saying, whether they think it's prejudiced or biased against Jacob Zuma, it's not defaming him because he couldn't make any charges stick because he's done these things and said these things, and he's been held to account by very, very important judicial processes in South Africa.
On the plus side, says a listener, hopefully the censorship gets young people more interested, because this is what you want. You want a group of 15-year-olds, a group of 16-year-olds to watch this documentary and have a decent moderator, and one hopes that the teacher will be such, to say, right, here we've got Jonathan Zapiro, cartooning, lampooning Jacob Zuma in this way. And our conversation is focused on Jacob Zuma, but of course your cartoons focus on a lot more than Jacob Zuma. So choose another one maybe and say, this, how do you feel about it? You come from this background, you come from this background. Do you feel differently about it? And then have a discussion which opens things up rather than closes things down.
And that's a lovely segue into one of the other things that I've been saying over and over since hearing about this rating, is that another irony is that my cartoons, I mean, whenever I meet young people, even younger than 13, I mean, sometimes I meet 11, 12-year-olds, but certainly kind of 13 all the way through high school and through university. People say, I had to figure out, I had to discuss a cartoon of yours in my exam paper. Or my cartoons get used a lot in exam papers and in discussion and in textbooks, in English, in other languages, in history, in art, in all sorts of things at schools. And here they are trying to somehow suppress the kids who've often seen a lot of my cartoons and have discussed them in school.
He's got a voice note talking about that, which I'll play after the news. But, Jonathan, good luck with the appeal. I mean, I cannot imagine that you won't win it and that this ludicrous classification will be dropped. Thanks very much for talking to us. Jonathan Shapiro, political cartoonist, a.k.a. Zapiro.